and they feel like you are bragging or that you are
Yeah, being
being
pretentious or something.
pretentious.
For me, I'm team advantages today, definitely. I don't think I've encountered that same format, that same style
Yeah.
in English. So it is a unique experience, really, for Spanish speakers. Person is like, what do you do? I'm like, I can't think how to say what I want to say because Spanish, maybe it sounds kind of cliche, but learning Spanish has like really tested that for me. ¿Su tía tiene una finca o algo donde cultiva café?
Después de que se
No lo
jubiló.
sabía.
Sí, mi tía se
Ajá,
jubiló, enfermera, se jubiló y después se
ajá.
dedicó a armar su casa con su esposo. Y la cosa es que ahí cultivaban bananos. Entonces ahora cultivan café y el café tiene un sabor, es la tierra, ¿no? Y tiene un sabor que es suavecito, eso es muy bueno.
Caminando por acá he visto como un poco de ese proceso, porque es súper común ver como mallas
Sí,
con esos granos de café y a veces tiene todavía algo de la fruta encima o no, eso depende de si lo han lavado o no. Y es chévere ver que hay personas que están pues haciendo café en una escala pequeña así, y hay tantos sabores y variedades súper chévere.
sí, sí, exacto. Entonces sí, chévere, estás ahí disfrutando, estás justo en el corazón. Grabemos.
¿El podcast?
Grabemos.
Ok,
A ver,
cool.
sí, vamos a una vez el podcast. Ok, bueno, entonces vamos a pasar al inglés. Casi nunca cambio así tan rápido, pero bueno.
I know it's difficult. I'll be the first person to speak in
it,
English.
it hurts.
It hurts, yeah.
It hurts, but we can do it.
And
Yeah, well, perfect. So this is, and I can openly say this is our very first episode and the first time that we are recording because it's not the first time that we have these chats. It's officially the first time that we're recording these conversations. But I think that is worth doing it because sometimes we touch some topics that I think if more people were uh, there listening to these comments and these ideas, maybe they feel that they're not alone in this process and that we are also facing these struggles or these discoveries or these questions. So definitely that's the reason we're here. I wanted to share that information, but I love the fact that we have two perspectives here. So I teach Spanish, yeah. So I'm running Fluency Lab, and this is like my perspective. I'm also English learner, as you can notice. But what I love as well is that I'm able to talk with you, David, and you have this experience as a Spanish learner, and you can, identify with the other side. So we have covered both perspectives. So thank you, David, for accepting this crazy idea.
no, well, thank you for having me. And it's interesting what you were saying about all of the conversations we've had in the past, just spontaneously about the magic of learning a language. And so I'm happy to be here and maybe share that with somebody who is in that same journey and looking for some ideas or answers. I think it's something great and a wonderful experience and something positive to share. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, the topic that we decided to start with is these advantages and also the side effects of learning a new language. So, of course, we have English and Spanish, but I think that could apply to the process of learning any other language as well. Just that probably this is our experience. But how did you feel about this contrast of advantages and side effects? Do you think that apply for learning languages?
Well, it's funny. I'm sure that there are both advantages and side effects, and it probably depends like when you catch me, because I know sometimes with language learning and my Spanish journey, I think I'm feeling the side effects maybe more than the advantages. But when I sat down last night to think a little bit about the topic, the things that I noted down were honestly mostly advantages and positive things about the experience. So I'll be a little bit interested to hear what your side effects are. And I'm sure that the conversation will make me remember some side effects. But my list is a lot of really kind of positive things that learning Spanish has given me. So for me, I'm team advantages today, definitely.
Because I'm curious. What did you have?
Well, one big thing for me is this idea of kind of discovering new like interests or even kind of hobbies.
Okay.
And it's connected to learning, but not learning the language, rather learning about other things. And I think this is something that really started to happen when I began to move from like being an intermediate student to being a more advanced Spanish student. I realized that I kind of needed to relearn a lot of stuff in order to be able to talk about it in Spanish. Like for me, it wasn't going to be, oh, I just need to translate ideas that I already have or information that I already have from English to Spanish. I felt like I needed to look for material, and primarily for me, it was listening to podcasts about different topics or areas to kind of incorporate that vocabulary, those phrases, the way to talk about those things
Yeah.
into my Spanish. Like I already had it in English, but I had to kind of go back over information a second time to learn it in Spanish. And I just think like I, before learning Spanish, I was never interested in Latin American politics. But now, because of the podcast that I follow, like it's something that I'm really interested in. Not to say that I'm, some super knowledgeable person, but I listen to a lot of information about that and I'm hooked and really interested. And I started to think a little bit about that Tertulia that I listened to. I don't know what would the word be for that, but kind of like a conversation about
Yeah.
scientific papers. And I think, like I'm capable of talking a little bit about quantum computing in Spanish and things like that. And
I
I,
know you
I don't
do.
even know if I could in English.
That's
So,
good.
know if you, have the same sort of process or have experienced that. But for
Yeah.
me, that's like advantage for sure.
Well, that's great because you were think I'm just thinking that those two topics that you're mentioning, science and politics, people could easily think, well, I can access to that information in my own language, right? So there's
Mhm.
no real need to learn the second language to be able to access to it. But what you were highlighting is that probably if you already were just only speaking in English, you wouldn't have touch those topics that often. Probably like like that process of learning a second language is what got you closer to those topics, kind of, if that.
Definitely, definitely. I probably wouldn't have started to sort of study those topics the way I am now, but I think you mentioned something interesting, and I'm not sure that I agree. You said, you could probably find that information in English. Well, I guarantee you, like, in terms of the politics of
Yeah.
Latin America, I like there's
Yeah.
kind of summary information available in English, but the kind of depth that I get from the podcasts and
Yeah, that's right.
listening to sources from different countries, I would never, ever have that experience in English. I mean, that's a door that's just closed unless you know the language. So, in some cases, yes. And I don't know, there are certainly shows about science in English, but there's no show like the coffee break, the one that I listen to that has, five, six, seven scientists together talking about the latest papers for hours and hours. I mean, the joke is that people use that to fall asleep, and it's true, I do, but I absorb a lot of the information kind of relaxing at the end of the day. And I don't know, I'm just not sure that a similar experience is necessarily available
That's
in English.
that. Wow, we could be talking about this for hours, but it just makes me think about the actual concept of tertulia, and how we really like to gather to talk about like that. That's something that I can mention about the French and the
Mhm.
Spaniards and the Spanish speaking culture. That fact of sitting around a table and just chat about a topic. It could be literature, philosophy. We love doing that. So probably it's less common in the English speaking culture to
Yeah.
create in a space like that, and that's why that format really got you, and you enjoy it because it's probably something that we tend to do, and it's cultural. Never thought about it, but that's great. That's great.
You said it better than I could have. I don't think I've encountered that same format, that same style
Yeah.
in English. So it is a unique experience really for Spanish speakers, or as you mentioned, others, French perhaps. But
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that they also do that. That they like to do this type of gatherings and talk about it. Anyways, yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, I've been thinking about them, my advantages, like the advantages that I found
Mhm.
for learning a second language, and for me, it's been about self knowledge. I'm obsessed about languages, and that I find many things interesting. The concepts and how you can learn the new way of looking at things, and that's part of it. But I was thinking more about how you learned about yourself in the process of learning, because it takes time, because it exposes you sometimes. It makes you feel vulnerable, right? It's something that we don't like
Mm.
doing. Normally, and being able to learn the second language and build relationships, friendships, all sorts of relationships in a second language, and having to find myself, having to find ways around to communicate myself, um, has told me so much about who I am and how I react to tension, and how I react to frustration, and all those things. And I love that because you never take a process of learning. I mean, I would say probably going to do some workout or music. Normally are the topics I compare because they take time and effort and discipline. But you never take this path of translating a whole system of thoughts and ideas and feelings into something new unless you learn a second language, and that gives you so many insight about who you are. I don't know. That's an advantage.
I agree with what you're saying. It's funny you've touched on two things that are right
Oh,
here
that's
in my
great.
list. My number two advantage is similar to what you said about learning about yourself, but also I learned to be patient with myself. I mean, I've done and it's had moments where I felt kind of inadequate or something, or I've been going through a couple of weeks where I just feel I haven't made the progress that I wanted to make, or I want to give up. And I've kind of maybe felt sorry for myself in a way. And probably that's like a personality trait of mine. I'm sure everybody has a bit of a different experience, but kind of forcing myself to keep going and kind of not taking myself so seriously. And really, for me, learning to have just patience with myself and to
Yeah.
realize like it's okay. And you're not going to talk perfectly and who cares, but you can still have conversations with people. And it's super exciting. And there are all these advantages like what we're talking about today that make it worth it, and not to get sucked into that kind of pity party that you could maybe feel or start to feel sort of negative about something that's not going exactly at the pace that you may want. So I've just kind of like, that's not only useful for language learning but for life, right? Just to
Yeah.
embrace that you're not perfect and to carry on and to reach for that goal and to not give up. Maybe it sounds kind of cliche, but learning Spanish has like really tested that for me and
Mhm.
forced me to put it into practice. So
Yeah.
I I agree with you on that point. And you talked about making new friends, and I've got that noted down here too. I mean, if you want to learn a language, you have to practice it. You end up talking to people in that language, and then you become friends. We're friends.
Yeah.
I've met all kinds of other people
Yeah. Well,
through practice, and
I like that you mentioned it. I'm just feeling bad because because I was thinking that for me, the process of making friends, which is great, and building relationships in English has been awesome, but it also has given me so many information about who I am, and which what I miss sometimes about myself, like the person I am in Spanish, and how that sort of translates in English, and then that reflection on what happened, because well, we all do it that when we have a chat with someone and then we go back, or we're driving or in the train or whatever, just thinking, or how do you say recapitular, like sort of going back.
yeah, I would say like going over it again in your mind,
Like,
basically. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I do that a lot, and I'm thinking,
Or sometimes we say rehashing, like rehashing something.
rehashing. There you go. So yeah,
Mhm.
when you do that, do that rehash in your brain when you're coming back home, then you think, oh, I would have done this better, or I didn't have the time to make the joke, or all of it. It's just interesting because it's come so natural in my own language. And there's some aspects about my personality that probably takes longer to translate. And being so aware of that has told me a lot about myself. It's less automatic. I don't know.
Yeah, I say there are two Davids. I mean, there's the David that speaks English, and then there's the David that speaks Spanish, and they're different people. And I think it has to do a little bit with, you have to be really advanced in a second language to be able to participate in jokes and humor. I mean, not totally, but I think to kind of feel like you're the same person would really mean that
Yeah.
you were super, super advanced in a language. But again, just embracing that and finding ways to, make those relationships and feel that you're interesting and contributing and so on. That's part of learning a language and kind of managing life in that language, which is a good thing. I don't know. It's kind of a side effect, like maybe feeling that you're not quite the same person in your second language, but it's also an advantage, definitely.
But sure. Do you have, I'm curious, do you have any side effects that we can start mentioning?
Well, it's funny. I didn't write down any side effects, but I am thinking of one just in this moment, and it's that idea of how, for me, there's kind of a wall. Like I imagine,
Yes.
like in my mind, there's a wall in between my two languages. I've got the English and I've got the Spanish. When I'm speaking in Spanish, it's difficult for me to access
Jump.
English. And when I'm speaking in English, it's difficult for me to access the Spanish. And so, like, learning a second language has been almost like made me aware of like how my brain is a little bit structured. But I think the side effect part for me is now that my Spanish is relatively good, sometimes when I'm speaking to somebody in English, like a Spanish phrase will come into my mind because it's better. It expresses the idea better. And my mind wants to use that resource because it's more apt for what I need to say. And I just feel like, oh, and then it almost
Mhm.
erases my ability to like access the English part of my mind. It's like there's that wall. So now I've got this like Spanish chirping in my ear
Yep.
and I can't think about how to express myself in English. And
Yes.
it almost seems fraudulent or something. Like the person is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't think how to say what I want to say because Spanish is there.
Just
But
there.
it's true. It's true. And as I said, it happens when the Spanish language is better for expressing an idea.
Yeah.
And that just my brain just wants to go there. I don't know if you experience that.
Yes, yes, and it's sometimes we make this joke about how efficient English could be, and but sometimes it's the other way around, and clearly your brain has made those choices before, and you
Mhm.
say that okay, maybe in Spanish you can wrap the whole idea in just one expression, and it will be perfect. I mean, I love my language, and probably there's always ways to do it. But again, just English decides to get on the way, probably because you learn about that specific topic or because you recently listened to that expression and that just gets in the way and you cannot express it anymore in your own language. And then you just feel frustrated because even if you try, you think like, but it's not exactly the same. I love talking with my friends who are bilingual and speak, I mean, the both languages that I control, people who are able to do that because they understand the pain and the frustration of trying to do it the other way around. So it's
Yeah.
great, and the jokes just get better when you kind of speak both languages. The jokes just grows exponentially because you can make puns and things like that double as good as if you were only speaking one language. But it could also
Yeah.
be isolating, and uh, it could be rude in some aspects if you're talking with someone who is monolingual, and that happens a lot with Latin America, and you don't find a better way to say it than using as an English word, and
Yeah.
they feel like you are bragging or that you are
Yeah. Being
being
pretentious or something.
pretentious. Yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
that your brain, as you have beautifully explained it, just took that decision. It's not that you want
Mhm.
to show off or want to say, oh well, because as I speak these languages, and this is a great. No, it's just that your brain decided to jump the wall to choose that sentence or that phrase or something.
I
Or
say it's a side effect because if you know that somebody else doesn't speak that language, it's a bit ridiculous to be,
yeah,
maybe using a phrase or a word in a different language. So it's a side effect. Your brain wants to go there because it's more efficient or it better expresses the idea. And then you're in this funny place where you're trying to find the equivalent maybe in English. And people are wondering, what's wrong with you? Like you've
yeah,
been an English speaker your whole life and all of a sudden you're stuck, which is
yeah, that's
the
true.
side effect part. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. Or
definitely.
you sound pretentious or you don't look stupid if you keep silent, just trying to.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
funny.
Definitely. That's a side effect.
Oh, I have a really great advantage. Watching TV
Uh-huh.
stops being a guilty pleasure
Ah,
and becomes
yes,
studying.
you
Like
have the
that for
perfect
me
excuse.
is amazing. It's like I'm busy studying. I'm watching my telenovela about Arely Say Now.
Yeah.
She's a Colombian singer. I'm watching a soap opera about her now. If I were watching that same kind of type or quality of show in English, I would feel guilty. I would feel like I was wasting my time. But if I sit there for 2 hours watching in Spanish, it's super useful. And it is. I mean, it's not like an excuse or something. I'm
You
developing
actually
my
learn,
ear. I'm
yeah.
picking up expressions that are used in Colombia. So training your ear becomes a wonderful excuse for just watching TV and feeling good about
Exactly.
yourself.
Yeah. So when asked, what are you doing? It's like, no, I'm studying Spanish. I'm just looking at the colloquial jargon of this specific region. But
Yeah,
you're just watching a
exactly.
telenovela. So yeah, that's true. That's true. I never thought about it. Yeah, it makes you feel better about the use of your free time. It's
You, I would interject here because this is like a pro tip for students, especially maybe intermediate students trying to kind of advance, is a lot of material. I'm thinking about Netflix, but I'm sure on other platforms as well.
yeah.
All those series and shows from the United States are all dubbed into Spanish.
Yep.
So if there's a series or something that you like in English, you just have to go in the settings and choose to watch it in Spanish. And it's actually probably easier to watch a show like that that's been dubbed into Spanish. It's probably easier to follow as a Spanish student than if you were watching a show originally made in Spanish with the original dialogue. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I understood from you that a lot of that, when they dub those shows, it's done in Mexico, and they use a very standard form of Spanish. So it's probably good for learners to pick up those standard words at first. And also, they're obviously recording that audio in a studio. So the sound is super clear. It's easy to follow. And if you're still struggling, another tip, put on your headphones. A dubbed show with headphones is going to be a lot easier to follow than the show originally in Spanish through the audio of the TV. So, you can follow what you're interested in, maybe a show or something like that, but also convert it a little bit into a Spanish learning activity or exercise. And it can be a nice step between, oh, it's too hard for me to watch
Yeah.
TV and I'm watching shows that were originally made in Spanish. And if you still struggle, you could put on the subtitles in Spanish and do that linking of reading and listening at the same time. And that can be really a lovely experience.
Yeah. If they match. But yeah, I understand. I understand what
I've had good luck with them matching.
have you
Have you found that sometimes the subtitles don't? It depends how
with
they're
the
generated,
yes,
maybe.
yeah, exactly. The English shows or the American shows or yeah, original in
Mhm.
English, they're dubbed. Sometimes they're being dubbed in different countries to the places that they made the subtitles. Now with the evolution of technology, maybe that's going to
Mhm.
synchronize even more. But if you look at something, I don't know, like old sitcoms or something like that, probably they will have different translations because they were dubbed in one country and the subtitles were made in another one. But yeah, so sometimes it's funny. And because the subtitles always try to be more loyal to the expressions in the original language. And the dubbing
Right.
tends to go for cultural, it's more focused on making it more
Right.
cultural and loyal, let's say, for the audience that is going to receive that message, whilst the subtitles tend to be more literal translation. So It depends, of course, because there's not
There
just
can
one
be like a
rule.
little difference there. I
Yeah.
know, I think I've seen that before. I definitely know what you're talking about, but it hasn't been super problematic. It's good for students to be aware that that might happen, though, so they don't end up
Yeah.
totally confused. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely.
definitely. But that's true. That's that's also a good strategy. It's a very good strategy. And yeah, the standard Spanish is always kinder because if the idea
Hmm.
is that someone from Mexico and someone from Chile and from Peru will be able to understand it, the jokes and everything. So it gets
Yeah.
less colloquial and gets more yeah, international sort of. Yeah.
I find it significantly easier to
Mm,
understand. The other thing is, if you've already watched a series in English, you know what happens in it. You can go back and watch the dubbed version, and you're going to remember, right? So you're going to
yes.
have an easier time following along. So it's nice to be able to adjust material that way to your needs, so that you're reaching and you're making that effort, and learning. It's not too easy, but at the same time it's not so hard that you feel discouraged, which is never good. Like, you want to find that middle ground where you're reaching and learning, but it's fulfilling and fun and keeps you interested.
Yes. That's brilliant.
Good.
I think that
Nothing.
because of the length of it, we can start just summarizing what we have mentioned. So you can go for the advantages because you definitely ruled that part. You made it better. You make it sound greater. So go for that. And I
Mhm.
mentioned some of the side effects so everyone knows what they can be expecting in a nutshell.
Okay. So learning Spanish is going to bring you a whole bunch of new interests and hobbies that are going to be super exciting. And you're going to realize that this is material that you would never be able to access in English. And so, really, it opens new doors for you. Um, Learning a language, for me, Spanish, has meant that I've learned to be patient with myself. It's had frustrating moments, but I've overcome them, and I've kind of embraced the idea of not being perfect, and just taking it sort of one day at a time, and enjoying the ups and downs of the experience. You're definitely going to make new friends learning Spanish. That's one of the most beautiful things about having a second language. And I think, to top it all off, for me, TV is no longer a guilty pleasure. It becomes something that you do for learning, and it's got its own justification. And so you don't have to feel guilty about watching TV anymore.
And that's an advantage that people don't talk about, right? Because they talk about the benefits for your brain. And definitely we'll touch that in the future. And all those things that definitely could be about health and mental health and all of it. But I like the justification for watching TV and being just kind to yourself and say, yeah, well, of course, I'm just taking my studies very seriously. It's just not a waste of time
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, definitely.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and for the side effects in my case, thinking about what we have mentioned,
Yeah, I talked a little bit about how when you're talking in your first language, sometimes you suddenly have like a resource in your
the
second language that you want to use, and then you can't find something as good in your first language, and you end up looking like you're stunned or having problems.
yeah, exactly. So it could be that learning a second language could make you look smarter or dumber, depending on
Yeah,
how you
yeah,
manage it.
depending. Yeah.
Because sometimes the expressions that you think are perfect for that moment are in the language that the person that you are talking with doesn't
Mhm.
know. So you will have to really think about it more carefully and take more time, or just feel that sense of what a waste of a great opportunity to use
Mhm.
this expression. So that's definitely one of those side effects. The sense of whether isolation or more connection. So isolation, if you are in that situation where you want to do it and you can't switch codes and switch
Mhm.
languages, or also the connection you can get with other people who are bilingual. So I just think, for example, in North America, you will find more jokes and more use of Spanglish if you're capable of using both,
Yeah.
because you will be just doubling your opportunities to connect and make jokes and make friends if you share that bilingual experience with some people. So yeah, it could be a side effect. It could be a good thing. Depends on how you look at it.
There's the
Yeah.
other side effect, which was being two people. The English
Yes.
David, the Spanish David, the English Angela, the Spanish Angela.
Yeah,
So
that sort of random bilingual bipolarity. That concept doesn't
mhm.
exist, but probably with
Should.
time it will be
Mhm.
developed, and someone is
Yeah,
going to talk about it because it does
a
happen.
psychologist.
It does happen. Yeah, that sense that sometimes you cannot translate your personality, and that you have to get to know a new year in that
Yeah.
language. Definitely. Well,
Yeah.
I think it was very good. I hope that we have encouraged some people to learn the second language if they haven't, and also to show to some of the ones that are already in this process that they're not alone. That we understand,
Yeah.
we understand what they're going through, and also that they have to feel very proud about the advantages that now they have in in their toolkit thanks to learning a
Yeah,
second language.
definitely. I would encourage anybody that's thinking about learning Spanish to just go ahead and do it. Get a great teacher, get a program, start doing it, and you won't be sorry. It really does bring more advantages than side effects, in my view.
Yeah, well, you definitely made the comparison, and they won. Even if you were trying to keep the balance, the advantages won. So that was good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for our chat. I hope that it's been useful for everyone, and we'll be seeing each other very soon and talking about some of these other tips and thoughts that we have around learning languages. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Angela. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, see you.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.